stand when his local library opened their children's section to the radical LGBTQ agenda. When you give today to AFA Action, you're helping to protect the innocence of children. We'll also give you a free copy of Mark's story. It's the latest DVD in our Impact series. Visit afaaction.net today. afaaction.net.
Welcome to Today's Issues, offering a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Thanks for listening to AFR. If you were paying attention, the announcer just told you my name, Tim Wildman. Tim Wildman. Ed Battagliano in studio with me. Good morning, Brother Ed.
Good morning, Tim.
And Fred Jackson. Good morning, Brother Fred.
Good morning. Good morning.
Breaking news, ladies and gentlemen. I need some breaking news music. I don't know. Okay, thank you, Ed. This is off Fox News. Trump trial to end early for juror's dentist appointment to address toothache.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the earth-shattering news this morning from the latest Trump trial.
Well, and they may postpone tomorrow, too. One of them has a hangnail. And, you know, if this just keeps going until the election, that's just the way things work.
How long will this trial, this particular trial, this is the hush money trial, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's supposed to be 4 to 8 weeks, but that may go a little longer.
You got another one have a toothache or a hangnail, you could drag this thing out.
Someone had to get their hair done, apparently.
But you know what's now we're kind of making fun of this, but remember, this judge would not postpone it even one day, so that Trump could go to his son's graduation, right?
That is correct.
Yeah.
Well, as I read it, he said he might do that. Just depends on how the trial's going. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm reading about.
Oh, he might do it.
Yeah, he might do it. Talking about Barron's graduation ceremony. Yeah. That's what I read that the judge said. Just depends on how the trial's going.
All right.
But we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Well, then I withdraw my objection, Your Honor.
But the dentist appointment for a toothache for one of the jurors that sounds kind of crazy. Except if you're the one with the toothache.
You ever had a toothache?
Yeah, you don't care about anything in the. You have a toothache, a bad toothache. Your world becomes very small.
Yes, it does. And if you're a man. The pain, you'd think you're getting a leg sawed off.
I know.
At least that's the way I am. You know, a little bit. My wife, good grief, she could be hanging on to life by a thread, and she doesn't make a complaint. She doesn't complain.
Yeah.
You know, but me, I get a little cold. Oh, sweetie, can I have some chicken soup?
She's
I'm
a better
congested.
woman. She's a better woman than I am. Of course, I'm not a woman. But anyway,
we don't do that here.
No, we don't do that here. we don't do that here. Absolutely. Well, we hope you had a great weekend, everybody. Alice and my wife and I, we were out in Dallas on Thursday. We'll meet with some folks who support our ministry, and then we drove to Rogers, Arkansas, for another dinner on Saturday night.
And you mentioned how beautiful Arkansas is in that part of the state.
Arkansas and Oklahoma. If I say the term mountains of Oklahoma, would you believe me?
No. I always think of it as flat.
Well, I know because the wind comes down, right? What's the song for?
Well, the wind comes, what is it, roaring down the plains?
I think so. But anyway, we drove from Rockwall, Georgia, Texas to Rogers, Arkansas, and we drove right through the mountains of the Ouachita. I think that's correct.
There is a Ouachita Baptist College.
Yes,
that part
in
of the
Arkadelphia.
State. Yeah,
but this is a mountain range right next door to the Ozarks. So I don't know when one ends and when the other one starts, but it just felt strange going through the mountains of Oklahoma because you just don't think of that. And there's
like the mountains of Nebraska.
Yeah. Who thinks? Yeah. Nobody lives there, by the way.
Is it like
the roads
you
are
mentioned that
great.
in devotion this morning?
Yeah.
Is it because it's federal land or something, or a national?
Well,
park?
I joke. There are just 13 people that live there between the Oklahoma line
All
and
related.
Forts. I didn't say that, Fred.
No.
Ed, you said that.
I wasn't implying it.
They are related, but it doesn't mean anything
Right, absolutely.
unnatural's going on there. But anyway, it was just it was beautiful, absolutely beautiful countryside there. And I thought, oh, man, this is like nobody talks about this, but it would be a great if you like camping, hiking, things of that nature.
They call it the
outdoors.
natural state, right?
Yeah, well, that's Arkansas.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I thought you were
Oklahoma's
talking about.
yeah.
So the Ouachita Mountains was in
that,
Oklahoma.
I think that's what they call it.
Okay.
Yeah, the Ouachita Mountain Range. Yeah.
All right.
It's look it up. It's a real place. Well, they say that from between the Appalachians and the Rockies, that's the highest place in the U.S. I'm talking about that Ozarks, Ouachita Mountain Range there. Yeah, so anyway, pretty cool. All right. Thank you for listening to American Family Radio. Fred, what's our first story today?
Well, it's really interesting. Up on the screen on the TV we have in the studio here, we have 4 different networks. CNN, MSNBC, and BBC are all focusing on the Trump trial. Fox is focusing on what is going on the Columbia campus of Columbia University today.
In New York.
In New York. The president of Columbia University has told all students to stay home because they are worried about the safety of Jewish students on the campus. Now, you've heard reports about Jewish students there being told, don't wear anything that would tell the public that you're Jewish. This is the kind of thing that's going on right now. This hatred of the nation of Israel, of Jewish people, Jewish students on the campus, has just reached the point where the president of Columbia University is worried about their safety so much, we want you to stay home today and don't come into the campus at all. Yale University, riot police were called in this morning, Yale in Connecticut, called in this morning because there are more Jewish-hating protesters on campus there. In fact, there was a reporter for a student newspaper who is Jewish who was attacked there at Yale during the weekend. This is, and this has been going on, and of course, anti-Jewish, anti-Israel sentiment on university campuses has been going on for a long time. We've been doing stories for years.
Right.
But I think what has shocked, I would hope, most of the nation is within 48 hours after the massacre in Israel of more than 1,200 Israeli men, women, and children massacred by Hamas terrorists, there were pro-Hamas demonstrations on our university campuses within 48 hours. It's amazing. I was telling you guys this morning about a profile of at least 4 or 5 Columbia University professors who hate the Jewish people, hate Israel. And a lot of people, this has been a story that's been kind of shoved aside. One of them, Joseph Massad, professor of modern Arab...
Sounds like a good Irish boy.
Yeah. Professor of modern Arab politics and history. His response to the October 7th massacre of Jewish people, he said the Hamas terrorists, awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Mohammed Abdu, visiting Columbia scholar, declared, yes, I'm with Hamas and Hezbollah and Islamic Jihad, all terrorist groups. Hamid Dabashi, professor of Iranian studies, under fire in recent years for a slew of controversial social media posts, including, quote, every dirty, treacherous, ugly, and pernicious happening in the world. Just wait for a few days, and the ugly name Israel will pop up in the atrocities, he wrote. That's just an example. 4 or 5 professors at Columbia University, they work there, they collect a salary, openly hatred of Jewish students, Jewish people, and the nation of Israel. Can you imagine for a moment if a Columbia professor got up in class and said, I think abortion is murder, do you think they'd be allowed to stay up in front of that classroom? What if a professor got up in a Columbia classroom and said, homosexuality is a sin? It's an abomination. Do you think their tenure would protect them? Not for a second. But these professors are allowed to continue there. Is there any wonder, and this has been going on not just at Yale, not just at Harvard. Remember, the Harvard president was fired back there a few months ago when she wouldn't give when she was asked, I think, by Elise Stefanik, what does river to the sea mean to you?
Yeah, the chant.
The chant.
From the river to the sea.
Well, it can mean different things to different people. And of course, Harvard says, of course, she was fired, but not really. She kept her job and her $800,000 salary. She's teaching in the law school there. And, you shake your head and you say, what in the world is going on here? During the weekend, there were students, again, attacked at Columbia. One of them is Andrew Parker Stein, a Jewish student. I want you just to hear. He describes being Jewish on that campus. Cut number 2.
A bunch of Jewish students came to campus to respond to the encampment. We just sang songs of peace. On the way out, a pro-Hamas mob started chasing us, calling us in the middle of campus, calling us inbred, that we have no culture. One of them grabbed my friend's Israeli flag in the middle of campus, carried it to a mob by the gate that were communicating with the angry mobs outside of campus. They threw hard objects at him. They started harassing him. They tried to light his flag on fire, and nothing is done with this. And after that, on the way out, we were talking to public safety. They started following us on the way out, and public safety just shrugged their shoulders. They're the ones who are responsible in protecting us. And the only protection that we had was we have one student who's a 6'5" student, and everyone hid behind him as we were leaving campus. And an angry mob of pro-Hamas students chased us off of campus, screaming, "We don't want no Zionists here, get out of here."
All right, so first, I just want to say that we all have an expectation of free speech in America, including on college campuses. So the First Amendment does protect unpopular or even the saying of things that others might find offensive. Okay, what I find ironic first and despicable second. Ironic first that the left has traditionally said certain ideas are not welcome on campus because they could lead to violence. Not they do lead to violence, they could lead to violence. This is why Riley Gaines has been, who is a former college swimmer who has had her career harmed by a transgender woman that is a male swimming. She now is a spokesperson against men competing in women's sports. She's chased off college campuses before. She's been assaulted when she's tried to speak before, okay? But the left always says, no, you can't invite a conservative on because it might lead to violence against transgender people, okay? So that's the first thing, is the hypocrisy of the left. The second thing is that when the left wants leftists to speak, my personal belief is they encourage violence, okay? So you had mentioned earlier that that there was someone on the Yale campus, a woman who was Jewish. She said, "I'm looking for the story now because it disappeared from my here it is. Jewish Yale student stabbed in eye with Palestinian flag." Part of her complaint was that the students who are quote unquote protesting against Israel wear these masks. They have a name for it. It's I guess kind of like a bandana, a kafia or something that covers their face. To me, if you are rightly protesting on a college campus or speaking, you shouldn't be wearing masks. You should not have things over your face, because what this Jewish girl says, he had anonymity because of the kafia. I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly. This bandana over his face. The organizers encourage anonymity at these events because it creates immunity so that students can physically assault people like me and then get away with it. And I believe that's absolutely true. And I believe the left is, most of the people on the left either are sympathetic with the pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas protesters, or they're afraid of them.
Yeah.
They're afraid of them. That's why they don't change the policies. They should be saying, if you're protesting on a college campus with something over your face, you'll be arrested. You want to protest? Fine. First Amendment, take it off your face. And then they should have the campus security arrest anybody who surrounds. I mean, this is a legal principle. If somebody gets close to another person within a certain number of feet, that is considered assault.
Yes.
You can't just walk up to someone and go nose to nose and then say, I didn't touch him, because that is an unsafe distance. Those people should be arrested. But I think the administration's either supportive or afraid. They don't want to get their buildings firebombed. All right? My rant's over.
But
Sure.
I think
Actually not.
I think it goes beyond that. I think there is a spiritual realm to all of this. The open hatred for Israel and the Jewish people takes us back to the days before World War II.
Right.
I think we've arrived at that point on many of these university campuses. You know, someone had made the point this morning. There were several arrests at Columbia University on Friday. The police moved in to remove a camp. As far as we know, not one student of these protesting students, these spewing hatred against the Jews students, has been expelled from the school. Not one.
And they've identified the students?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
They were arrested.
Oh, they were arrested but not expelled. Okay.
Yes. So they have their names. They know who they are. No
Well, your point about the rise of Hitler in Germany before World War II, really into the 30s, part of what happened is exactly what we see happening on these college campuses. They are telling Jewish students, hide your identity. And in Germany, as Nazism grew in influence, Jews did so. Some of them changed their names. They were hiding their Jewish heritage because of the growing hostility. And at some point, that wasn't good enough. And the Nazis, obviously under Hitler, started putting the yellow stars on them. And so when it's not an exaggeration to say what we see happening on these college campuses is the prelude, perhaps, to something much more terrifying for the Jews.
Well, yeah, we'll see if this spreads. These universities you mentioned, Yale and Columbia, they are liberal wackadoodle schools. Okay, they're far left, far left. Administrations and professors and their student body, and quite frankly, you know, a lot of the Jews are lefties, but now they're finding themselves going, wait a minute,
Right.
These people hate us. They hate them because they would say because of what Israel's doing in Gaza, namely, but this goes back, you know, Israel's retaliating for what Hamas did when they butchered, what was it, 1,100, 1,200 people?
1,200.
On October the what?
7th.
So, and, you know, if you go back before that, then we could keep going back and back and back. The Hamas supporters are going to say, oh, yeah, but, you know, Israel, you know, made Hamas a place that was unlivable.
Yeah.
And put the Palestinians there, and so you can't blame them for being frustrated and acting out.
Yeah, and it's really not just the college campuses. I've noticed in the last several weeks, I would say a couple of weeks, these pro-Hamas protesters blocking highways, blocking
Except
the
in Florida.
Yes, in Florida. To
You see what Governor
airports.
DeSantis said?
That's the way it should be handled.
You know, you have these Palestinian pro-Hamas protesters blocking airport entry in New York, Chicago, Seattle, maybe some other places as well. They tried it in Miami, and the cops pulled them off the street and piled them up
Yes.
on the sidewalk. Basically, it said you can protest. You have a First Amendment right to protest, but there There are places you can do this, but you
Right.
can't obstruct traffic.
Right.
You can't get in the middle of the street and claim you have a First Amendment right to that.
Right.
You don't. So that's what Governor DeSantis of Florida said. We're not tolerating that, and they're not. So that did.
Well, if you don't do that, then you have scenes like we have seen in videos. I'm sure we all have, where truck drivers, for example, or people in vehicles that have to get somewhere, if the law does not take action, people will get out of their vehicles and take action themselves. Some of these protesters could get run over when someone loses their senses in a vehicle, and so that's why you can't have chaos in a free society.
Right.
The law has to take action when you have highways,
Right.
Overrun by these protesters.
All right, you're listening to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Next story, Fred.
Well, we kind of alluded to it a moment ago. Former President Trump is back in a New York courtroom this morning.
Is it cold in the
it-
courtroom? Because he was saying it was cold.
It was cold, yes.
Yeah.
Last week he was complaining about that. But as usual, he made a statement, and he's been doing this, even though he has a gag order on him. Before he goes into the trial room each day, and when he comes out, he says this is all a sham, this is a political witch hunt, et cetera, et cetera. Well, on Friday, 12 jurors and 6 alternates were chosen. They're in the courtroom today to hear the opening statements. And, a lot of the conservative legal analysts in all of this, and we've touched on this a number of times in recent weeks, they say this is all a sham. This is not a crime, what he's alleged to have done. He paid money for a non-disclosure agreement to a lady by the name of Stormy Daniels. And but the accusation from the conservative side is that the New York prosecutor, a Democrat, has turned this into a crime of paying money for a non-disclosure agreement. Anyway, we have a number of attorneys talking about this, including Florida Attorney General Ashley Moody, saying this trial doesn't make sense and there is no perception of fairness. Cut number 6.
Well, this is quickly turning into trial by ambush. The fact that we're still discussing and waiting for a ruling on a judge regarding whether all of these other things can be considered in this trial, as Trump is trying to decide whether or not he thinks he can even take the stand and will be treated fairly. I mean, I've been a former judge. I've tried many hundreds of cases. A lot of this doesn't make sense. A lot of this is not fair. And at this pivotal moment in the course of our nation's history, you have to have a judge and a DA that are extraordinarily cautious about the perception of fairness, and we certainly don't seem to have that here.
There's not going to be any attempt to do what she just said. She's right. This is the
Florida Attorney
General
Ashley Moody.
You absolutely should want to fight for a perception of fairness, but because the media has almost completely gone over the legacy media, almost completely gone over to a pro-Democratic Party, anti-Trump perspective. These individuals in New York City and Manhattan, whatever, Letitia James, Attorney General of New York, they don't have to fight for fairness because the media covers them and all their friends pat them on the back. So you have what's happening is that people are seeing that this is not fair. Now, I listen, if laws are broken, then you got to go ahead and uphold the law. But it seems clear to this non-lawyer, I'm talking about myself, that the prosecutors are taking what could be misdemeanors and trying to spin them up into felonies and trying to keep Trump off the campaign trail.
All right, we'll be back in a moment. Stay with us. You're listening to the radio program Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Tim, Ed, and Fred, and we shall return.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildman.
Back many years ago, an elderly couple, a man and his wife, were passing through Philadelphia. Being tired and the night half gone, they searched for a hotel where they could get some rest. Every hotel they went to told them the same thing. Sorry, we're filled up. Finally, in desperation, the couple tried a little third-class hotel. As they entered the hotel, the man went to the night clerk and spoke. "Mister, please don't tell me you haven't got a room. We've searched all over town for a room, but the conventions have filled up our usual hotels. We're so tired. Please don't tell me that you don't have a room where we could get some rest." The night clerk looked at the couple, saw how tired they were, and then spoke. "I'm so sorry, sir, but our hotel is completely full." The expressions on the couple's faces turned to disappointment. They started to walk out. Then the night clerk spoke again. "Sir," he said, "I have a room which I'll not be using tonight. I have the night shift and will be working all night. It isn't a fancy room, not as nice as the others, but it is clean, and if you wish, I would be happy for you to be my guest for tonight." Well, their faces lit up with gladness. Their disappointment was turned to happiness. The woman spoke. "God bless you, young man." Feeling like $1 million, the clerk showed them to his room. Next morning, the couple went to eat breakfast. At the table, they sent the waiter to get the night clerk. They sent a message they wanted to see him. Entering the room, the clerk spotted the couple. With a smile on his face, he spoke. "Hope you got a good night's rest and everything was fine." Both the man and the woman thanked the clerk for his kindness. After exchanging a few words, the elderly man changed the subject. "Young man," he said, "you're too fine a hotel man to stay in a hotel like this. How would you like for me to build a large, expensive, luxury hotel in the city of New York and make you the manager of it?" Well, the young man sat there for a moment. He did not know exactly what to say. He wondered if the gentleman's mind was right. Finally, after searching for something to say, he stammered out these words, It sounds wonderful." You know, that young man didn't have to put those people up for the night. He could have turned them away. He had a good reason, and people have been turned away before. Remember Bethlehem? Already every major hotel in Philadelphia had turned them away. But this young man had something about him that refused to turn them away. He wanted to help, to be kind, do unto others. He did that. He followed the carpenter's command. It wasn't long after that a new hotel went up in New York City. It was one of the greatest hotels ever built. They named it the Waldorf Astoria, and the young night clerk became the manager and one of the world's greatest hotel men. The gentleman he shared his room with was William Waldorf Astor.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildman, a production of the American Family Association.
Therefore, since we have been justified by faith, we have peace with God through our Lord Jesus Christ. Through him we have also obtained access by faith into this grace in which we stand, and we rejoice in hope of the glory of God.
American Family Radio. This is Today's Issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of Today's Issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of Today's Issues.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network, live radio show here on AFR. Thank you for listening. If you want to send us an email, the address is comments@afr.net. Comments@afr.net. And I'm Tim Wildman with Ed Battagliano and Fred Jackson. We're discussing the news of the day. And where were we, Fred? What are we talking about now?
We're talking about the opening day of the trial.
By the way, I don't even think the show needs you and me. Ed is rolling, son. He's rocking and rolling.
I am jacked up.
Yeah, you jacked up. You got how many Diet Cokes you got going on?
This
here?
I'm going on 2.5 right now.
That's what I'm talking about.
Mm.
So we just throw a word. Just pay word association. Ed'll pay paragraph association.
It's like throwing a piece of bacon at a dog, man. I'm on it.
All right, go ahead, friend.
One of the other aspects of this trial, and it was there was an attempt on the opening day, even before the jury selection process began. The Trump lawyers asked for the judge to recuse himself.
Okay.
Because the records show he has donated money to the Democratic Party, but also his daughter raises money for the Democratic Party. Of course, the judge refused, but Fox legal analyst Greg Jarrett says there are rules about judges recusing themselves, and this guy breaks all the rules by saying, no, I'm not going to recuse myself. Cut number 4, recuse myself.
This judge was required under the Code of Judicial Conduct to recuse himself. Why? Well, because his immediate family member, his adult daughter, has a financial and economic interest in the outcome of her dad's case. In fact, through her Democrat consulting organization, she and her clients have been fundraising in solicitation emails by citing the Trump prosecution in New York over which her dad presides. And they have raised, according to the New York Post, some $93 million.
Wow, I didn't know that about the fundraising.
I know. It's just hard to believe that this is going on in this country.
Let me just 2 minutes for those who don't. I think most Americans have chosen sides on what they think about President Trump and these court cases. Well, I would say a majority. I don't know. A majority of Americans probably think that this is unfair. Okay, I would say a majority of Americans. I have seen a survey recently. However, just 2 minutes here of what this is really about, because this isn't. It's basically come to Trump versus the left, right? Would you say that? Huh?
Yeah.
Okay, and that's a general observation. But what's the exact accusation here?
Well,
for those who don't know.
Yeah, the accusation is that Trump had affairs with at least 2 women, Stormy Daniels, Karen McDougal, is that her name? Karen McDougal. I think it was an adult star. Anyway, I want to go there. He had an affair with them. Then in the run-up to the 2016 election, Stormy Daniels wanted to make that public. Now, Trump denies that he had these affairs. Stormy Daniels wanted to make it public. So she was paid $130,000, signed a non-disclosure agreement. It's hush money. This is the accusation. And here's the part that it would be prosecutable. It's not illegal to pay someone off.
Yeah, rich men pay women off all day, every day.
All the time.
Yeah.
Okay. But the accusation is that Donald Trump told Michael Cohen, his lawyer, pay her out of campaign funds or pay her yourself. I'll reimburse you with campaign funds or with business. Maybe some of it was business funds, and that they lied about the purpose of that expenditure in business records. So that's the way the charge is going. That's supposedly a misdemeanor to paper over your business records. But what the prosecution is saying is that it is a felony because it violates campaign finance laws. Of course, the government agency charged.
How so?
Well, that you are when you use campaign funds or you use business funds for campaign purposes, you've got to spell out the purpose of that expenditure. Now, the Federal Election Commission is in charge of deciding whether the election laws have been violated, said there was none of that in this case. So this is the local jurisdiction in New York saying, yes, it is. It's a felony, and we're going after Trump for felony charges.
So if this wasn't Donald Trump, the presidential campaign, former president who's running for president again, you think this would even be an issue?
No.
Okay, that's
Absolutely not.
kind of the bottom line
Yeah.
on this thing.
Yeah.
I've described it this way. Trump was going 58 in a 55, and they gave him a $100,000 fine. Is that a huh?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd
Okay.
say $250,000
Okay.
fine.
Okay. What?
And
Anyway,
and trying to put you in jail.
We never would have heard anything about this had Trump not been running for president. Do you think?
Because to me, it's a federal issue, and the Federal Election Commission has already said, and the Justice Department.
Right.
The Justice Department has also
Right.
said there's no real law broken here.
Okay.
But that's not good enough for the lefties in New York.
Okay. Well, he may have been going 55.
Yes. Well,
55
right.
and a 55 if it's anyway. We'll see what happens here, but this court now, are these women going to be called to testify?
I think so. I think they are going to be testifying in this trial. Is that what you have heard, Fred?
It's a possibility.
Yeah.
Can you pay them off not to?
No, they'd be under
Or
oath.
is that double?
They'd be under oath at the time
Huh?
if they.
Huh?
Oh, you want to pay them off
To not testify?
Yeah.
So anyway,
sure
I'm
Trump-
just
Trump
trying.
might run
I'm
out of
just
money.
trying to think of this. Keep this from turning into a three-ring circus here.
Oh, it's coming, Jerry. It's the three-ring circus. Barnum and Bailey are already lining up with the parade of clowns.
Yeah, I just hope it doesn't get into. Did you have an affair with this woman? And she says yes, and he says no. Type deal, and then they got to get into proving it and all that.
And
stuff.
then get into details.
Yeah,
No,
you see what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, no, it's
You don't
probably
want
going to
that.
take that.
You don't want that.
Yeah,
for the families.
because Trump is saying he didn't. So I'm guessing these ladies have some sort of proof. They have.
That's what I'm
receipts
talking
or
about.
whatever.
That's when it gets into
Yeah.
tabloid stuff,
Right.
Sordid stuff.
I think that's coming too.
All right. Well, thank you, Ed.
Oh yeah,
That positive,
Cheer up.
sunshiny outlook
Yeah.
on the Trump
let me
trial
get you a Diet
coming up
Coke.
for the next few weeks. You think this thing goes on for a few weeks,
I think it will. I think it'll.
Yeah.
I think it will go. I think it'll go past a month.
depending on how many toothaches and we have to
Right.
get the jurors have to get taken care of?
Let me ask you guys that the legal experts are saying they've looked at the law on this. If he is found guilty, he could go. They could put him in jail right away.
They won't do that. I don't think so. I think if he's found guilty. Now listen, New York is. If I were Donald Trump, in retrospect, he probably would say this too. He should have got everything out of New York the day he won. He should have started moving everything to Florida. All his business interest, everything. But now that would have been hard for him because he's identified with New York because he's a businessman, a high-profile celebrity businessman who made his name in New York City. So, and that's where he grew up in Queens, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it'd have been hard for him to do that, and maybe he couldn't have seen how bad this would get. So, you know what I'm saying? So, but in retrospect, you got to think he's thinking, "What am I doing? How am I ever going to get a fair shake in this liberal cesspool of New York State and New York City?"
Okay, my personal opinion is if he's found guilty, I think they will. I think they will arrest him. I understand what you're saying. I think, and I think it would be a huge political mistake. And this is clearly all about politics. I think Alvin Bragg, this Manhattan District Attorney, I think he's going to ask for Trump to be immediately incarcerated. And listen, I don't know. He has Secret Service protection, right?
Yeah.
Trump. I mean, do they let the bailiff come and?
That's why I don't think it. Yeah, I hear you, but I don't think they'll make him pay some kind of fine and put him on some kind of probation or something like that. I don't think they're going to put him in a Manhattan jail. That's my opinion.
Well, we're going to find. We'll find out.
But you got to get a guilty with 12 people.
Right.
I mean, all you need is one person to say, "I don't agree with this. I disagree," and that's a hung jury.
Yeah.
So, your chances are one out of 12 are going to say, not enough evidence here to convict.
Right.
Anyway, go ahead.
It was interesting, this interview that Fox did this morning with their legal analyst, Greg Jarrett. The first question he was asked was about the jury. Apparently, there are several lawyers on this jury, and Jarrett believes that this could work in Trump's favor because these lawyers are going to, okay, what law was broken, to address what you were talking about a few moments ago. Define for me which law was broken, because remember, initially, Bragg's, we don't have a case.
Yeah.
And then, as far as a misdemeanor goes, we don't have a case here.
Yeah.
So it bumps up into the federal judicial system, and all of a sudden there's a federal crime here. And so Jared is saying, because you've got several lawyers here, if they wish to abide by their ideals as a lawyer, let's just deal with the law that we're looking at here. He feels at least one of those lawyers is going to say this man is not guilty.
Okay, now let me just clarify something. Now, again, I'm not an attorney. This is my understanding of it.
Mm-hmm.
Is that Alvin Bragg is not going to try to charge Trump on a federal crime in New York, although, papering over your business records is a misdemeanor. It can be bumped up to a felony if the cover-up of the business records is meant to hide an additional crime.
Mm-hmm.
Then it becomes a felony. So Alvin Bragg has to prove that Trump knew he was breaking federal law. That's why he papered over his business records. Then the New York case goes from misdemeanor to felony.
Right.
So that's my understanding.
So the way this went down, allegedly, is Trump. Oh, okay, I'm just going to say he did have an affair. Okay, he says he didn't. What is the definition of an affair? Is that a one-night stand, or is that a continual relationship? I don't know. But I'm just, for sake of argument, and then we'll move on here. So he's got these at least two women that paying them off, or at least one of them he paid off. He told Michael Cohen, his lawyer, he said, well, she's going to spill the beans on your illicit relationship just weeks before an election, which might damage your chances.
Give her what she wants.
Give her what she wants. So
right.
But I don't want to know about it, and I don't know how it takes place.
Right.
Just take care of it. And listen, people of Trump's stature, I'm talking about super wealthy people, business people, they have fixers. That's what they call them. They're basically lawyers who take care of everything where you don't have to, and even your troubles, and they fix it. And a lot of times they fix it by paying people off. I mean, that's just the way of the world. Am I right?
No, that's right.
So he said fix it, and now, again, if he did, and then you got this accountant doing the money, and they're paying her off, but they're trying to hide it because they don't want it exposed, right?
Right.
But and if it's an NDA and non-disclosure, that's the whole point of it. Just not to make something public, so you pay somebody off. And so the New York, the Manhattan DA, son, you can't do that because you're impacting the election by keeping this hidden from the public, right? So that's what he's saying. That's what election interference.
Yeah, he's It's both. It's you can't pay. It's illegal to mislead
use campaign
on your business
funds.
forms.
Use campaign funds to pay off. That's what the thing is.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Next story, Fred. We'll see where this goes, but it's going to last for weeks, I guess.
It's not going to be family friendly, I don't think.
No.
Well,
also, Michael Cohen. Excuse me for interrupting. Michael Cohen, the lawyer for Trump. He worked for Trump for how many years?
I don't know, but he spent 18 months in jail.
Yeah, but I mean, he was Trump's top lawyer for a long time.
Yeah, I'll look that up to see how long he worked for Trump. Let's see.
I mean, he was Trump's fixer. That's what I'm saying.
He served as an attorney for former President Trump from 12 years, 2006 to 2018.
That's a tight relationship right there.
Yes.
For that long.
Served as vice president of the Trump Organization and personal counsel to Trump. That some of those positions may be scattered throughout these 12 years, but it has often been described as his fixer.
All right, you're listening to Today's Issues on American Family Radio. Next story, Fred.
You know, we have been doing stories about what's been going on in the United Methodist Church now for years. Tim, I remember doing AFA Report with your dad.
Yeah.
And we did programs back
Been
then.
going on since the 90s.
Since the 90s. More than 7,000 United Methodist congregations have left the denomination, primarily over the fact that they have a book of discipline which talks about the sin of homosexuality, and it's been ignored. That's one of the big issues that's been there. Well, this week, the United Methodist Church Council of Bishops is meeting, and they have elected a new president. Her name is Bishop Tracy S. Malone of the UMC East Ohio Conference. All right. Some interesting quotes. This is a Christian Post story on her. She said, "I will continue to provide leadership to the church that inspires hope, helps to unite the United Methodist Church, and our collective efforts to becoming a more inclusive, grace-filled church." She said she would deepen and expand our commitment to discipleship, mission, equity, and justice in the church and in the world. She says the United Methodist Church continues to have a thriving witness and missional impact throughout the world. So,
well, listen, I'm
looking at her words.
Yeah, I grew up in the United Methodist Church, as most everybody knows, because my dad was a UMC pastor. And my dad grew up in the Methodist Church, and before they merged with the United Brethren, I think, denomination. So the United Brethren and the Methodist Church merged in the 60s and became the United Methodist Church, which made them at that time the second largest Protestant denomination in the U.S. behind the Southern Baptist Convention. And so the Methodists have a long history in this country dating back to the 1700s. I mean, the circuit riders who trailblazed the gospel across America, John Wesley, Charles Wesley, Francis Asbury. I mean, the tradition of the Methodist is rich in the United States. What happens in the last 30 years is that as happens to many institutions, those who subvert the Scripture got in charge of the seminaries. This almost happened to the Baptist. You remember this?
Yes.
And then Paul Pressler and Adrian Rogers and all those names may ring a bell. They fought back against it. You remember this?
Right.
That happened in the
1980s, yeah.
80s.
Yeah.
But the Methodists, these far lefties, and the ones who don't believe subvert Scripture is what I say, the inerrancy of Scripture, they started taking control of the Methodist seminaries, and then the bishops, and many of them went left. And so the church, the United Methodist Church does have what you call a book of discipline, right? And the book of discipline clearly says that homosexuality is this is the word it uses, incompatible with Christian teaching. Incompatible, contradictory. Well, the Methodist Church leadership has decided we're going to ignore that. We're going to ignore that in our church, in our book of discipline. Well, this has been going on for, like, as I say, 20, 30 years, this coming to a head. It finally came to a head where churches have now decided, a lot of United Methodist churches, I don't know, I'm thinking it's 20% of them have left.
25%.
25% of them have left and have left the denomination in the last couple of years.
And I've been looking to find out what the population, what the percentage of membership, individual membership that represents. I haven't found the numbers because it may be 25% of churches, but
Right.
it may be 40% of the membership in the U.S.
There's some big, small, medium, and big churches have left over this issue because you had to. It came to a point where you had to decide, because they were marrying gay folks and getting away with it, and the bishops were not doing anything about it. Listen, God loves gay people like He loves lesbian people. God loves everybody, but you have to. But He does have standards of human behavior that God sets forth in the Scripture, and acting out on homosexual desires is sinful, according to the Bible. There's no way, and that's been Christian teaching for 2,000 years. All right, so all of a sudden, the United Methodist Church, like some other denominations, the mainline denominations say, "Hey, I guess God didn't really mean that. 2,000 years of teaching on human sexuality, we're going to throw out the window and say God embraces everybody, whatever they want to do." Right. Thus, when they use the words like inclusivity, is that what they use?
Inclusive, equity, justice in the world.
That means no moral standards. Basically, we're going to have no moral standards when it comes to human sexuality. We're ditching that because people can do whatever they want, act in any way they ever want, and God's going to bless that.
You know what's interesting about the word justice, because you mentioned some of these words being used to describe the incoming.
That's her words.
Her words.
Yes.
This word justice gets thrown around a lot.
Yep.
Now, folks, you're listening. You've read in the Bible, especially in the prophets, the word justice is used. Okay, so you may be getting confused as to, well, what's going on? Well, the word justice in the Bible means righteousness. Okay, the Bible speaks of individual righteousness and it speaks of community righteousness. Righteousness means acting right before God. So when the word justice is used in a translation you're reading, it's referring to a group of people acting in a way towards one another that is right in God's eyes. Well, what the left has done in the United Methodist Church and other Christian denominations is take that word and say, no, justice doesn't mean what's right in God's eyes. It means what's right in our eyes.
Yes.
And we'll determine what justice is. Because if you talk about justice as it's used in the Bible, you cannot give a thumbs up to sinful behavior. But it is confusing to Christians when they come across a word, in Micah or Amos or something. Well, they're talking about justice. Am I wrong here in terms of homosexuality? No. Justice in the Bible means righteousness in a corporate sense, how we behave towards one another. It doesn't mean everyone gets to do what they want and you've got to be okay with it.
Yeah. So the bottom line is that the denomination is hemorrhaging, the United Methodist Church. And it's as I said, now a lot of these churches are joining the world. Well, I better not say because I've forgotten. A lot of these ex-United Methodist churches are joining.
It's an African based group, I believe it is. Yeah.
The United Methodist Church, or the Methodist Church around the world, generally speaking, is very conservative.
Right.
It's very conservative.
The American church is
right.
Gone astray, gone awry. But you look at we mentioned this before, the denomination. Of course, denominations don't have as much sway as they used to in the U.S. because there's so many independent churches now. But the denominations that were all across America, the Presbyterian USA, which used to be called just the Presbyterian Church,
the Episcopalian Church,
the United Methodist, the Lutheran Church. I mean, these are churches that are historic denominations across America, and there are others who have who've done the same thing the United Methodist Church has done. And you know what? They're dying.
Right.
They're dying because people are not going to come to a church that doesn't believe in anything.
Right.
If you don't believe in anything, really, you don't believe
Stay home.
Well, especially if you, more specifically, if you don't believe in the authority of the Scripture.
Right.
Of the Holy Bible, if that's not to take preeminence in your church is going to die.
Right.
Now you'll find every once in a while some church will grow because of some warped teaching, but generally speaking, if a church starts denying the authority of the Holy Bible, it will eventually die out. All right.
The Global Methodist Church is what you're thinking.
The Global Methodist Church is the one that these ex-UMC churches are joining.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
The Stand is the official online and print publications of the American Family Association, but more than that, it's a hub that connects you with in-depth information about things that can impact you and your family. And it provides biblical encouragement to strengthen your faith and your families. Sign up for a 6-month free trial to the print version and listen to the Stand Radio podcast at afa.net/The Stand.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. Arrest this morning at Yale University amid continued police response to mobs targeting Jewish students. Jeff Manasso reports.
In New Haven, Connecticut, hundreds of protesters being removed from a makeshift encampment on Yale's university campus. They blocked streets while calling for a free Palestine, with dozens of protesters, some students, arrested. It follows demonstrations over the weekend and at least one reported assault on a Jewish student, according to the school's newspaper. The removal of protesters and arrests after similar disruptions in New York. That's prompted Columbia University to hold classes virtually today out of safety concerns. Jeff Manasso, Fox News.
Opening statements are underway this morning in the so-called hush money trial of former President Donald Trump. Former acting U.S. Attorney General Matt Whitaker says there is so much that is wrong about this trial, beginning with one of the prosecution's star witnesses, Michael Cohen.
But I will tell you, Michael Cohen has said publicly, and has filed with, I think, the FEC, a statement that is going to be inconsistent with his upcoming testimony. And so the question that Michael Cohen's going to have to face is, you're a convicted perjurer, a convicted liar. Are you lying now, or were you lying then? I mean, really, the government's whole case falls apart. And in the meantime, you have a judge that should have recused, has a massive conflict with his daughter's outside work. And I think this whole case ultimately is going to crumble because it's just doesn't work under the law, and especially under the facts.
Florida Attorney General Ashley Moody has presided over hundreds of cases as a judge and says she's never seen one as one-sided as this.
I saw someone commenting that Trump seems to be losing his patience. Wouldn't you? You've got a juror that's been seated that has said that they think he's self-interested and selfish. They were seated. You've got a judge who should have recused himself. I would have, as a judge, certainly for the perceived conflict of interest. That judge is still on the case. You got a DA that's only given you witness names like the night before, and a gag order on a defendant when a witness is out there running around talking off at the mouth, and the defendant can't even defend themselves in public. All of this goes to the perception of fairness.
So-called progressive Christian leaders have signed on to a document called the New Haven Declaration that purports to list which social and moral issues the church should support. And it's not the ones you're likely to hear coming from American Family Association.
The Christian left seems to be very concerned about Christian nationalism, however that's defined. Progressive activist Bishop William J. Barber has organized some of its leaders in creating a document called the New Haven Declaration of Moral and Spiritual Issues in the 2024 presidential election. David Clausen, director of the Center for Biblical Worldview at the Family Research Council, says it supposedly checks the rise of Christian nationalists and their priorities and substitutes other priorities.
The issues that they choose to talk about as important, critical, moral, and spiritual issues, they coincidentally seem to line up very nicely with the progressive left.
Odd how that happens.
They're calling for a season of preaching on these issues, but they mention the issue of a living wage, union rights, health care and ecological justice, reimagination of criminal justice, the protection and expansion of voting rights.
Clausen says the declaration is signed by a who's who of left-leaning leaders and denominations, but doesn't give a single scriptural backing for its priorities. And he says, predictably, it's missing a few of the social issues the Bible does talk about.
I think noticeably absent from that list would be abortion. Religious liberty is not mentioned. The whole host of LGBTQ issues, the transgender issue.
I'm Steve Jordahl.
Wall Street is holding steady today following a 3-week losing streak. In the bond market, the yield on the 10-year Treasury was holding steady at 4.63%. More news available online at afn.net and on the AFN mobile app. I'm Rusty P.
The American Family Association's mission is to inform, equip, and activate individuals to strengthen the moral foundations of our culture. Our goal is to be a leading organization in biblical worldview training for cultural transformation. We stand on the biblical truth that all human beings, including the unborn, are created in the image of God and are endowed by Him with the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Thank you for standing with the American Family Association.
Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Okay, so for those watching on the internet,
It's tea time.
We're about to experience a cake tasting, right? So Tim Wildman here with Ed Vitaglio, Steve Paisley Jordahl.
Hey.
Has come into studio.
Hello, everybody.
Fred Jackson has remained.
Yes. For the cake tasting.
He's a holdover. So, Steve, set this up for us here.
Well, last week, maybe the week before, we were in studio, and I was telling you about I was mad at my dog, remember? Because the dog I'd made a cake, and the dog had gotten up on the counter and gotten to the cake, and I had to throw it away, so I was kind of upset. So
well, you had to throw away most of it.
Wasn't sure which part.
You ate some of it. That's what we were making fun of.
But you guys had never heard of a tres leches cake, and we're kind of mocking that
free
too.
milk.
So wait, hold on. That was just a blur right there. You said to us, you guys have never heard of it. What did you say?
Tres leches means 3 milks in Spanish.
I had not heard of that. No.
It has sweetened condensed milk. It has regular whole milk, and it has evaporated milk. And
the diversity of milk.
That's right.
Goat's milk.
And so I thought I'd bring this in here for you to test it.
No, I'm just kidding.
But also, I just found out a little bit ago, Tim, that on Thursday, the Mississippi House passed the H.R. 125, which is the resolution honoring and mourning the loss of life and legacy of Dr. Don Wildman. So we might as well use this as a celebration as well. I think that's a wonderful thing that they did.
Yeah, that was very nice. So the Mississippi State Legislature to honor my dad.
It's about 4 pages. 4 pages of whereases.
The cake is in celebration.
Yes.
I hadn't read that yet, but I'll read that. Yeah. Thanks.
We
mentioned it.
We were wanting to make that a surprise for Tim, but thank you for ruining the surprise.
You didn't know about it
on the resolution. Just kidding.
All right. Well, at your leisure, you may taste the cake.
So we're going to do a live. This is like Today Show stuff. You realize that, right?
That's exactly what it is.
It's kind of.
So I asked him. I said, "What if we don't like it?" And he said, "Well, that's the risk I'm taking."
I'm taking that risk.
All right, I'm gonna. So I don't know who's gonna be able to talk here, but
I'll talk while you guys.
It sure does look good. I'll tell you that right now. Huh?
Making a little bit of a mess. That's very good.
Hey, that is delicious.
What do you think, Fred? Is it past Canadian muster?
You didn't.
I like it. It's very rich. I like the cream on the top.
Yeah.
It's cream on top is like whipped cream, right?
It's homemade whipped cream. Yep.
Yeah. No, it's very good.
Well,
I can understand why the dog attacked it.
You know, the devil comes in many forms, and I told Ed during the break, Steve, and I'm not calling you the devil.
I hope not, but okay.
I told Ed, I said, I'm starting today. Okay, I got about a week before family vacation at the beach, and my family has high expectations of me. They don't want to see a
beach whale,
pot-bellied pawpaw out there running along the beach. So I'm trying to knock off 6 or 7. You know what I'm saying? So which would be helpful. And
today was the day.
Today was the day I was supposed to start, and Steve brings me 400 calories to get it kicked off here.
And that's when I said, sometimes the devil comes to you dressed in a paisley shirt.
I would never.
That is a good cake.
That is very good.
Where I get this recipe when I get through my diet?
You can probably look it up online. This particular one is out of the New York Times food.
I don't do anything New York Times.
Me either.
Because it's a communist.
It is, but they've got a
communist piece of cake.
They got a great communist food
app, recipe app. It's
You're
the
saying
best.
commies aren't all bad.
Right.
Okay. I was hoping you'd say like Southern Living or something
No.
like that, something more sane.
Well, let me read as long as we're celebrating, and we are.
Just go ahead and read that recipe on the air.
A bunch of whereases. Like I say, 3 pages.
Wait, hold on. We're juxtaposing things here.
Yeah.
You're not about to read a recipe.
No.
This is a serious thing you're
Yes,
talking about.
this is. I'm
Serious
very
thing.
proud. I'm very proud to read this.
Yeah. So, of course, my dad, native Mississippian, and he lived his whole life in the Magnolia State. So the state legislature, as they do with some Mississippians who pass away, they issued a proclamation. Is that what it's called?
Yes.
In honor of my dad. And that's what you're about to read from. Is that right?
I'm going to read that, yes. Like I say, this is the form that they take. They have a bunch of, whereas Reverend Don Wildman was a fantastic
A lot of
guy,
whereas.
a lot of whereas.
You don't have to read the whole thing.
No.
I think it's 4 pages.
4 pages of whereas, a lot of whereases. And then it cuts to the last, the chase here. It says, now therefore be it resolved by the House of Representatives of the state of Mississippi that we do hereby mourn the loss and commemorate the life and legacy of Reverend Don Ellis Wildman, and express sincere and deepest sympathy to his family and friends upon his passing. Be it further resolved that copies of this resolution be furnished to the family of Reverend Don Wildman and to the members of the Capitol Press Corps.
Oh, thank you. Is there any name associated to that, or?
Yes.
Okay.
But I might have it here.
Okay.
Because Jameson Taylor was going to Bell. Donnie Bell.
Okay. And it was passed by the legislature at large. Anyway, that's quite an honor. And our family,
thoughtful
our
thing.
family appreciates that from the state legislature. We appreciate the state legislature of Mississippi doing that,
right,
and honoring my dad. As again, I said, he lived in Mississippi his whole life. You're listening to the radio program Today's Issues on American Family Radio. Tim, Steve, and Ed, what's your first story, Steve?
Well, why don't we go here?
Non-recipe.
Non-recipe story. So a while ago, last week, President Biden was out doing what he does, which is walking into gas stations and ice cream shops and talking with people, and he was roundly mocked.
Making up Whoppers.
Yep. He was stopped at a Sheetz, S-H-E-E-T-Z.
Be careful.
Gas station in Pennsylvania. We don't have that particular brand here. But he walked into there, and he had a photo op with the owner of the manager of that particular one, and everything was hunky-dory. But
and he mentioned that he was raised at a Sheetz gas station.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember that, yeah. He did. He said, I was raised on Sheetz gas.
Yes.
But less than a week later, the Department of Justice is suing Sheetz gas stations.
Oh, man, that's disappointing.
Do you know why?
No.
That's right.
No, why, Steve?
They're suing it. It operates more than 700 stores in 6 states, and it discriminates against Black, Native American, and multiracial job seekers by automatically weeding out applicants whom the company deemed to have failed a criminal background check.
Who's going after him? The Department of Justice.
Yeah, the government is
So
suing.
this is a convenience store chain. Is that what you're saying?
Gas station, probably it does have convenience stores.
And they're they're in Pennsylvania. Where are they?
I don't know where
They're up north. I've seen them before traveling.
Okay. S-H-E-E-T-S TZ convenience stores or gas stations.
So the Biden administration, after Joe Biden went there
and supported them,
and supported them, the Justice Department turned around and is suing them for discrimination because they don't want
they do background checks on their employees, and
they don't want felons working there.
The chain's long-standing hiring practices have a disproportionate impact on minority applicants and thus run afoul of federal civil rights laws.
Well, I bet you they win their case there because I don't know anything about them. But a company today's world is not going to explicitly deny people job opportunities based on their ethnicity or their religious background or anything like that.
They might on their criminal background.
Yeah, but that's not discriminatory. Okay,
That's what
yeah,
they're saying.
you're not. Yeah, that's your point, and that if the company will prove that we deny people of all colors,
right?
If they have a felony in their background, we deny them employment at our company.
Right.
That's all they got to show.
Yeah.
So
apparently,
but it is election season. The Democrats and Biden, they need something to go out there and say they need to save America from, and fill in the blank, and they'll use this as an example.
I also noted that Sheetz gas stations are going to be sued by the Justice Department because they won't hire former cannibals.
Oh, that's right.
This is in honor of Joe Biden's uncle.
Uncle
who was
Bozy,
who was.
You realize we just ate cake, right?
Yes.
Like 5 minutes ago, and you're bringing up cannibalism.
Well, I'm just saying.
I just don't need that.
I'm just saying, that's discriminatory, and they're going to give it.
Well, that was Joe Biden. That was one of his whoppers.
Right. That was last week.
Last week.
So he has said a lot of whoppers, but he's getting a little pushback for this weekend for some reason on his Catholic faith. This is really interesting. I've got two clips to play you. The first one is from Cardinal Wilton Gregory. He is the Archbishop of Washington. He's a cardinal. And
Washington, D.C.
See, he was on one of the networks talking about Joe Biden's Catholic faith. Listen to cut 10.
I would say that he's very sincere about his faith. But like a number of Catholics, he picks and chooses dimensions of the faith to highlight while ignoring or even contradicting other parts. There is a phrase that we have used in the past, a cafeteria Catholic. You choose that which is attractive and dismiss that which is challenging. I would say there are things, especially in terms of the life issues, there are things that he chooses to ignore, or he uses the current situation as a political pawn.
Who's that? That's a cardinal?
That is Cardinal.
That's one of the top leaders in the Catholic Church in the
Wilton
U.S.
Cardinal Gregory, Archdiocese of Washington.
So he said he's a cafeteria Catholic.
That's what he said. But I have Bishop Robert Gross, who wasn't near as polite.
Where is he the bishop of?
Saginaw, Michigan. And he was having it was a talk. It looked like it was a luncheon for some of his parishioners. They were sitting at tables, and he was having a talk on forgiveness and the importance of forgiveness. And if you walk around unforgiving to people, that it's a burden on you more than it's a burden on the people that you aren't forgiving. And then he says, how many of you have thought ill of President Biden lately? And everybody laughed, of course, because they all had. Excuse me. And so he went on to say it's important that you forgive Joe Biden because, well, he knows not what he does. Cut 11.
I don't have any anger toward the president. I feel sorry for him. Right? I'm not angry at him. He's just stupid. I mean, he is. He doesn't. If you think about a Catholic up there, I'm getting on my soapbox here, and he professes what he does, to me, I don't know, that's ignorance. Not in the sense of, it's an ignorance in the sense of not knowing, right? So it's not stupidity in a derogatory way. It's stupidity in the sense of he doesn't know, and so he does things. He doesn't understand the Catholic faith.
He's stupid, but I don't mean that in a mean way.
In a derogatory way.
I mean the best possible way.
I took that to mean that he's not accusing Joe Biden of being of having an IQ of 40.
That's our job.
Yeah. But what he is saying is, I kind of understood him to say he's willingly ignorant of the faith, or we might say it in the evangelical community. Joe Biden has not been convicted by the Holy Spirit about what he's doing. He's outwardly religious, but always learning, but never coming to the knowledge of the truth, as the Bible.
One of my really good friends is Catholic, and he goes further than those two guys. But he's not a bishop or anything, but he says Biden is a fake Catholic, F-A-K-E, fake Catholic. Because, and you know what Biden, they're already showing him going to Mass, right? But there's a couple things there. Number one, his position on abortion is is excommunicable. Is that the right way to put it? I mean, he's been threatened to be kicked out of the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church, to their credit, teaches what the Bible does on humanity and the fact that the human being with a soul begins at conception between the man and the woman, the sperm and the egg, and thus begins biological life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Human life. That's when the church teaches it needs to be protected from that point forward. And abortion is a mortal sin. Correct me if I'm wrong here, says the three Protestant boys.
And mortal sin is in the Catholic faith, is a sin that can send your soul to hell.
Right. So you have a man who claims to be a faithful Catholic, Joe Biden, who promotes a mortal sin to the public. And he's proud of it. He's proud of it.
Yeah.
Do you ever hear him say anything negative about abortion? You ever hear him say this is anything where he would be reflective of it being an immoral action?
No.
No, he's always just proud of abortion and his stand to promote abortion. So that alone is completely inconsistent.
Well, and he's trying to leverage his thoughts on abortion as well.
Who is?
The Democrat, Joe Biden in the campaign, because they put out a commercial. I want you to hear this. They put out a commercial. It's a group that works with the Democrats. They list themselves at the end here of this ad, but they're talking about in Alabama, they don't want women in Alabama going over to Georgia or other states that allow abortion. Because Alabama,
what now?
Alabama, according to the Democrats, it wants to criminalize women who cross state lines to get an abortion because abortion is harder to get in Alabama, if at all. So they put out this commercial. Listen to cut 12.
We're almost there. You're gonna make it.
Trump Republicans want to criminalize young Alabama women who travel for reproductive care.
Miss, I'm going to need you to step out of the vehicle, take a pregnancy test.
Stop them by taking action at righttotravel.org. Campaign for Democracy Group is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Wow.
Listen, if you're going to have an ad with a Southerner, at least get a Southerner to do it.
Right.
Huh? Or was that a Southerner accentuating a fake Southern accent? I don't know. That was.
It didn't sound natural, didn't it? This is a Yankee.
I am.
I'm a Yankee,
right?
But I've been married to a Mississippi woman since 1981 and been living in Mississippi since 1985, and I can spot a fake accent as well as anybody.
No, he said, "Miss, I'm gonna have to ask you to step out of the car." Yeah. I mean, who talks like that? Huh?
Well, he actually might have an employee or two here who does that.
Yeah.
No, I'm just
maybe 3% of people talk like that. Anyway, the more serious point is here: the Democrats are trying to scare the people of Alabama with this ad to say that the cops are going to give them a pregnancy test, which is just completely bizarre and not true. But let me tell you this, there are many states now, especially in what's called the Bible Belt or the Heartland, that have very pro-life laws now.
Right.
You say go to Georgia. Well, Georgia has a heartbeat bill that they passed. That's law. So beyond 6 weeks, you can't get an abortion in Georgia.
By the way,
Alabama, Mississippi, same way.
Right.
Go ahead.
The group that does this is Campaign for Democracy. They're the ones that behind the ad.
Yeah. They're wanting. Listen, the Democrats are wanting to. They want to milk the Dobbs decision as long as they can to try to generate votes by scaring people, and you want to scare young women, I guess women voters, to saying that if quote MAGA Republicans or Republicans have their way,
right.
You'll
be pulled over.
You're going to be pulled over and put in jail.
Given a pregnancy test.
Yeah. So
the absurdity is just mind-boggling, but that's where we're at.
The group behind this is Gavin Newsom's group, by the way.
Yeah. I don't know how long they'll be able to. I agree. I think that this did work. This scare tactic did work in the 2022 election.
The abortion issue.
The abortion issue, the midterms. But I just think the further we get away from the Dobbs decision, the less impact that's going to have. The Democrats are just trying to stoke it. They're trying to, scare people still with these kinds of ad campaigns. Miss, I'm going to have to ask you to get out of the car.
And I like the way you said they're trying to milk this,
right,
Tim, after
milk
we
this
just
for
had
all
a
it's
piece
worth.
of Trace Leche's cake with 3 milks.
How long we going to go on with this, Ed?
I don't know, Steve. Have you got another
Steve,
story
you
over
got another
there?
story for us?
I do.
Bring forth it, Steve.
All right. Group of 15 financial officers representing 13 states has issued a warning to Bank of America for politicized debanking of conservatives. They are charging, not legally charging yet, but they are saying that Bank of America will debank, will kick customers out, close accounts, and refuse to do business with customers if they are of certain political bents or conservative bents. And we could do a shortcut here and say that they're probably looking at the Southern Poverty Law's hate map, at least in
Southern Poverty Law Center.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. That came out of the blue. I'd not heard anything about this. So these are attorney generals of how many states?
13.
That are accusing what bank is that?
Bank of America.
Bank of America of discriminating in their loan processes against
just their account process. Just you have a savings account or checking account to do business.
All right. Well, we'll see what the result is of that. Those you get 13 attorney generals together. That's nothing to sneeze at. I mean, they could be the Bank of America. They're on the defensive on this. And listen, we have to stop this politicalization of people's views in order to do business in America and do commerce and travel, whatever. These companies, are companies free to do business with whoever they want? They are to an extent, but then they also, companies, if they're going to deal with the public, they can't be discriminating against people based on their religious views or their ethnicity or their gender. There's a lot of reasons why you can't discriminate against people, and what they're saying is that U.S. Bank has been discriminating based on their
religion.
On religion.
I need to make one clarification. It is not attorneys general. It is financial officers. An auditor in one state auditor is. I mean, these are the type of people that are issuing the letter.
Well, what is it? What is the headline? What does the first paragraph say about?
A group of 15 financial officers representing 13 states issued.
Okay, so it may not be attorney generals. It may be state auditors or things of that nature.
Correct.
But state officials.
State officials.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, interesting.
Yep.
Got about a minute left here.
Yeah. Did you guys ever wish you could disappear? Like a hole would open up and you'd be swallowed by the ground.
When I had an algebra test, I wished I could disappear.
Right. Or you say something you didn't mean, or you came out wrong, or whatever. Well, now
happens frequently in my marriage. I'm just kidding.
You might want to take advantage of this. Now there is a new
joking
invisibility cloak. They have actually invented an invisibility shield. It deflects the light. You stand behind it. It's got little lenses in there that deflect the light. You know how, like, you see a planet off far and the light is bent around it? Well, this does it very close up, and it'll make you disappear behind this shield.
Can you get it at the Dollar General?
Not yet.
Not yet, Tim, but soon.
You might be able
very soon.
You might be able to get it at the $870 General.
I think you can get it at Sheetz.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
maybe. Pick up your Tres Leches cake there.
They have them. They're Buc-ee's.
All right,
has their own,
fellers.
At the
time to end this here show. This here program is over. Thank you, Steve.
My pleasure.
And you're rocking the Paisley shirt today.
It's a Madagascar shirt. Thank you.
It's a Madagascar, but it's a Madagascar Paisley.
Yeah, there's a little bit of kind of.
It's a hybrid.
Yep.
Thanks to Ed and Fred and Brent Creeley, our producer. I think that's all that was on this show today. Have a great afternoon, everybody. We'll see you back here tomorrow.
We live in a day when